2026 is shaping up to be one of the best years in gaming, and what about the most wanted strategy games? That's right, this is a list of upcoming strategy games for the next year, and they are so wanted. But will they turn out as good as everyone is hoping? We'll have to wait and see, but these are the ones that you can keep an eye on. The first one that a lot of people are talking about is, of course, Warhammer 40k Dawn of War 4. This is an upcoming RTS, and the RTS genre has been having a decent enough revival these past few years, particularly with definitive editions. And after the Dawn of War definitive edition game released to much success, everyone is now eyeing the next mainline new entry, Dawn of War 4. This is set in the Warhammer 40k universe with various factions, and it is a fully fledged RTS, resource gathering, base building, and army micro, but it is in a bit more of the squad-styled unit controls and setups. It's promising 4 unique playable factions, a massive single-player campaign, and of course plenty of skirmish, AI battles, multiplayer, and all of that good stuff. From what we've seen so far, it does look very good, but when it comes to RTS games, a lot of the newer ones tend to be missing the heart of the classics, because they do face this challenge where you have to appeal to the newer audience, but then you have this core classic RTS fan base, which want things to be very specifically their way. But that classic approach typically doesn't work in new games, because if you just go full on classic, you might as well play the old game. So they try some new stuff, and that new stuff doesn't always work. Hope for Warhammer 40k Dawn of War 4 is massive, and if it plays as well as it looks, we're gonna have maybe a new RTS hit on our hands, which we haven't really had a mainstream success in the subgenre since Age of Empires 4. In kind of RTS fashion, Anvil Empires. This is a hugely hyped one because it seems to be mixing Age of Empires with Battle for New Earth. And if you are unfamiliar with Battle for New Earth, yes, it is the same New Earth as Heroes of New Earth, but before Han released, there was this game called Savage: The Battle for New Earth, and it was an RTS, but also the unique thing was every unit on the battlefield was controlled by a player. So in that game, you could be a commander and then you're selecting units, but those units are other players. And Anvil Empires is building up towards something like that in a more historical setting. This is promising to be an MMO game where thousands of players are working together to build empires, waging war and conquering in a persistent online world. And you are marching alongside armies, and they're all players. And this isn't just a battle game. You have to deal with the medieval logistics, establishing supply camps and making sure supply lines are going to keep your armies, well, players, well fed, armed, and rested. You can't just fight forever. This is supposed to be a strategy game. But how exactly it's all going to work out is, of course, a little suspect, but if it does deliver on the promises it's making, Anvil Empires would be amazing. But that's why this is one of the most wanted upcoming strategy games, if for nothing else, just to see how it plays out. It could be something really magnificent. But when it comes to anything MMO these days, you do have to be a little bit cautious and be a little bit skeptical. If it does actually deliver, then we can all be pleasantly surprised. But for now, Anvil Empires is definitely one to watch, and we will keep a keen eye on it just to make sure that they are actually meeting the expectations they're setting for themselves. Slowing things down, we've got MENACE. This is a sci-fi, tactical, turn-based strategy game, and it's always nice to have a new turn-based tactics game, and this is from the developers of Battle Brothers. Now, Battle Brothers, if you don't know that one, it is a very popular tactics game, but visually it looked a little more on the simple side, we could say, and that was kind of the main criticism of the game, just how it looked. So obviously, as you can see on screen right now, MENACE is looking much more updated, And this is a game where you are answering distress calls across different worlds. You're training and equipping infantry, deploying tanks and mechs, and you are planning and executing these missions in detailed turn-based battles. This is tactical in many senses of the word. There's flanking maneuvers you could do. You gotta keep in mind the weapon ranges and damage over distance to come into play. There's all the different units and equipment and vehicles and limited supplies that you have to manage. But there's also a character-driven experience going through the whole thing, where there's some characters and stories. Besides all that, it is primarily a tactical game. It's promising endless replayability on procedurally generated multi-mission operations and maps. And overall, it is really shaping up to be a pretty solid one. It does have a fixed release date of the 5th of February 2026, but at the time of recording, there is also a free demo that you can try for MENACE. So that does lead into the hype for this one because people are just trying it out right now, and I think they're liking what they're seeing and playing. So they're all getting excited for the full release, which will be early in 2026. And if you're a fan of games like XCOM or any kind of tactical strategy game, then I think MENACE is going to be a big one for the year. For an old series returning to its roots, Heroes of Might and Magic Olden Era. So this is a classic strategy game. If you're not familiar, it dates back to the 90s, and Heroes of Might and Magic Olden Era is trying to go back to the classic style of about Heroes of Might and Magic 2, 3, but also mixing in some things from Heroes of Might and Magic 5. And when this first was revealed, there was a little bit of contention about its visual style, whether it was appropriate for the series this day and age. And a lot of people liked it, a lot of people didn't like it. A demo was released for this one, and it was an extensive demo. There's 4 full playable factions, a number of maps. Although it was pretty bug-filled, not so unplayably bad, but there were a lot of bugs here and there. They have been actually updating the demo. The maps you can play are randomly generated, so people have been spending dozens of hours playing the free demo of Heroes of Might and Magic Olden Era. Despite the criticisms of anything, people have really been wanting this. This went from the 25th most wishlisted game on Steam to the 12th at the time of recording, and it seems to only be going upwards. It crossed 1 million wishlists, which is a pretty big number. With the demo getting better, people are just continuing to play it. This demo actually feels more than many early access releases. But anyway, Heroes of Might and Magic is a turn-based strategy game where you control various cities, produce a lot of units, and run around the map collecting resources, exploring locations, and overall trying to defeat your enemy. If you're not experienced with classic strategy games, this might feel a little weird at the start, but there are some modernizations that might help you ease into it. Now, this is planning an early access release in 2026, so it's unclear when the full release for this will be. But if the demo is anything to go by, the early access release is probably going to be pretty extensive. For the full release, we will eventually be getting a full new campaign, story mode, and everything. Some things to note, this is a prequel to the other games, so factions are a little bit different, some things have been shifted around, the politics of the world are a little bit unfamiliar, and it is set in a location that the Heroes of Might and Magic series has never fully properly been set in. So they're trying to give the series a fresh start while also looking backwards to what made the series great. That balancing act could be a challenge, and we'll see if it gets better from here or if Heroes of Might and Magic Olden Era will stagnate. And then there is Ashes of the Singularity II. This one is a total annihilation-styled battlefront of an RTS where you are controlling huge forces in this sci-fi setting. You get to control the forces of Earth, the mechanical AI substrate, or an enigmatic post-human coalition as you battle across the solar system, in single-player, cooperative, multiplayer, or competitive multiplayer. Now, there are a number of games that vibe in this direction of this larger-scale RTS, Total Annihilation, Supreme Commander kind of style. And this isn't the only one even on this list, but this one is currently aiming for a 2026 release. It's looking like a decent enough sequel. The original game released a decade ago to mostly positive user reviews overall, but this one is being published by Stardock Entertainment, who have published a number of strategy games over the years, like Galactic Civilization and Sins of a Solar Empire 2. So we can hope Ashes of the Singularity II brings the series to another level, because the first one, it was okay, it was relatively popular. This sequel needs to take it up another notch though, because there is quite a bit of competition. Not just, I'll mention one later, but also outside of this list, there are a number of other games that want to do this, and I have talked about those before. Anyway, Ashes of the Singularity 2, visually it looks great. Performance-wise, we will only be able to judge when it gets here, and we still need to wait for some proper gameplay footage, like some more raw gameplay footage to see if it all really does come together. Going to space, we have Beyond Astra, a real-time 4X sci-fi grand strategy game that is taking place across galactic warfare. And one of the unique things here is that it's going through space, but also down onto planet side, where you can not just build your base and fight in space with space naval warfare. You do land on the planets and build up there and take place on terrestrial warfare as well. Now, this is one that we have been watching for a while, and I've been keeping an eye on this and been hoping it comes along, because sci-fi strategy games, we don't have that many good ones these days, and we have been a little anxious about the state of Beyond Astra. At the time of recording, they have promised a release window of 2026, so at the moment this is looking for a 2026 release of some kind at least. All of this gameplay, by the way, the space and surface level, it happens simultaneously at the same time, and it even has some city building inspirations when you construct on the planets themselves. You do have to manage your economy, military, diplomacy, science, culture, even religion. There's 7 different victory conditions depending on how you want to go through the game. And you do have various unit types across the different planes, a bunch of resources to harvest and process, and just quite a lot, really, in terms of exploring and managing this vast galactic warfare. So this is promising a lot, and it's trying to do a lot of things across this grand strategy 4X larger scale space strategy. And it looks very exciting, and we can hope that it does actually deliver on all of these promises. Going back to history, Age of Respair. Here is maybe a competitor to the Stronghold series, which, by the way, there is meant to be a new Stronghold game on the way, but nothing is fully confirmed, so I'm not listing it on this particular list. Age of Respair is a medieval strategy castle builder, and you build not just a castle, but the entire contents of it, including a pretty large city. And then you lay siege to these large cities on a much grander scale. You gather resources, you grow your population, you strengthen your defenses, you build massive armies. There is a promise of a story-driven campaign, but also skirmishes versus AI opponents. And you balance your people, happiness, upgrading buildings, in a kind of Anno style. There's just a lot here. This seems to be trying to take the Stronghold formula and scale it up a little bit. There are some very clear inspirations in terms of what's what. Like, you can see certain things look straight up from Stronghold, but other things not quite the same. Visually, it's not the best looking game, however, it is planning for a 2026 release date, and if the gameplay itself is actually as exciting and large-scale as it's promising, then the visuals aren't gonna be a problem, because mainly anyone playing this wants large-scale battles, large-scale sieges. Age of Respair is offering that, and we'll see in 2026 whether they can actually deliver. Next up, we've got something that vibes very much like StarCraft II, ZeroSpace. So in recent times, there have been a lot of games that are trying to emulate or be spiritual successors to the old Blizzard RTS games, which, for obvious reasons, Blizzard is not making RTS games anymore. And maybe Microsoft will bring them back to that at some point in the future, but we're seeing games like The Scouring, which is like a Warcraft 3, Warcraft 2 hybrid successor kind of thing. ZeroSpace very much looks and vibes like StarCraft 2, but different. And this one is a 3-faction sci-fi RTS. And there is meant to be a story to play through as well as you try and save the galaxy. So interestingly, not just trying to be the multiplayer competitive side of RTS, it is meant to have that single-player storyline. A sci-fi story about a galactic conflict, and even we've seen clips of nothing set in stone, but like dialogue choices and cinematic experiences, which is something we haven't really gotten from an RTS properly for a long time. And I think it's one of the biggest features that has been ignored or just not implemented for various reasons, whether it's difficult or complicated or anything like that. We just haven't seen a lot of narrative cinematic experiences in the RTS space properly for a while, and this one is promising that. It's also promising 11 factions, 14 heroes, comfortable strategic gameplay, but also skill-based higher ceilings for those of you who want to min-max and micro your way to success. And it's also saying there's going to be an MMO galaxy map where there's this overall war happening, and you can take place in co-op battles, single-player, PvE, 2 versus AI, 2v2 scenarios, 1v1 experiences, and all of this stuff happening trying to pull the entire ZeroSpace community into one playing field, mixing the story, single-player cinematic experience of the RTS classics, but also MMO big community stuff. Overall, it feels like a lot, but also we have been watching ZeroSpace for a little bit. The updates have been published and still coming along every month or so, and there have been some wargame demos and developer updates. We've been waiting on this for a little bit. I can see this releasing in 2026. It is at least one of the most anticipated RTSs over the next year, so we're all watching this, we're all waiting for it. Now, whether it's going to take off or crash and burn, we'll have to wait and see when it fully releases, but ZeroSpace has a lot of potential, and that's another reason why, it gives me hope. Maybe it's possible. Maybe they can do it. Just maybe. I really hope so. Next up, a Fantasy 4X game, Atre Dominance Wars. This is a 4X hybrid real-time strategy game where you level up your heroes, you have god spells, you can upgrade your armies, you build an empire, and manage your cities. So this is akin to Age of Wonders or Heroes of Might and Magic, but a different flavor, and it being real-time makes it a little bit more fast-paced. There's also this spell casting like a god in god game fashion, so it is this strategy game slash god game, I guess, because it does kind of feel like that. You can forge artifacts to make your heroes more powerful, and the immortal generals command your armies as you expand and explore across the map. And that map itself is also supposed to have world changes based on your choices. So every playthrough is supposed to be different. It is offering a campaign mode with some story as well across 4 different worlds and different factions that you're going to be dealing with. And overall, it does look pretty good. And it's nice to get more options in this Fantasy 4X realm with some RPG, and the god game mechanics actually is kind of interesting. You don't get that too often in a strategy game because they tend to be a little bit overpowered or just hard to balance, but it does look exciting. Atre Dominance Wars is aiming for a 2026 release after running a successful Kickstarter, and we'll see if those funds do bring this to the finish line. For some mecha tactics, Kriegsfront Tactics. Here is a procedural turn-based mecha tactics RPG-ish game set in an alternate 1970s during a conflict in Southeast Asia. So, myself being Malaysian, I'm a little bit interested in this setting. Now, visually it does look a little bit older, but you don't get these settings very often. But having said that on the visuals, it is going for that middle poly approach. Now, if you don't know, middle poly is a graphic style which I'm just trying to coin this term. So you know how there's low poly and then there's high fidelity, which is high poly. So middle poly is an intentional throwback to the early 2000s, late 90s 3D, where it's a little bit pixely, a little bit polygonal, but not low poly. I like to call it mid poly, and this is going for that aesthetic, which is actually a pretty popular approach to graphics these days. And who doesn't like mechs? I mean, I guess a lot of people don't like mechs, but mechs are so great! And this is a tactics game where you are going across the tropics and dealing with other mechs. I mean, shooting at each other, crushing each other, recruiting and building your squad, and just surviving this 70s jungle. This is a bit more of an indie development, so it's coming along slowly and there's no fixed release window for this quite yet, and development updates can be few and far between. Having said that, at the time of recording, there is a free demo prologue that you can just jump into right now. So the game is real, and you can just try your hand at some retro mecha tactics and see if Kriegsfront Tactics is one you want to be looking forward to in the coming year. Moving on, there's Empire Eternal. From a StarCraft II successor to an Empire Earth successor. And this one is nostalgically published by Microprose, which obviously over the decades, the conditions of the companies change. But Microprose, it's still kind of surprising that I hear that name around, and this is being published by that. It's another one that we have been waiting on for a while. It has continued to get updates, but because it's trying to be an Empire Earth successor, it's supposed to be an RTS that brings your civilization through all the ages, from the ancient eras into the modern eras and maybe into the futures, going from swords and spears to battleships and stealth bombers, and that's a lot to cover. What we've seen so far is decent. Visually, it has been a little rough in some of the gameplay reveals, but generally when it has like a proper showcase of the gameplay, it does look kinda nice. It's supposed to have a single-player campaign and competitive multiplayer modes with modding support, and your units should be able to climb walls and jump on board enemy ships and doing all of those extra things. There's a lot of promise here. Updates don't come all that frequently. They've shown off a Copper Age, they've shown off a Bronze Age, and we have been watching this more closely over the past year. There is a potential for this to be releasing into 2026. I'm not gonna promise that it's going to do that. It definitely could, at least in some kind of early access state, maybe with not all the ages, but you know, if they released the game in an early access state with just like 3 ages, that would be nice to see as well. The RTS community has been wanting an Empire Earth successor for a long time. Every time people talk about Age of Empires, there's always that one person who's like, oh, I wish I could play Age of Empires, but like going through all the ages. And then another person comes along and says, yeah, that's called Empire Earth. But Empire Earth is kind of old at this point. So Empire Eternal, it would be great to get a new Empire Earth with more modern graphics and updated gameplay and a better, cleaner, more refined experience while still having that little bit of classic RTS jank to it. And Empire Eternal could be one that delivers that eventually when it does, if it does. Then for an economical grand strategy, Gilded Destiny. Now for full transparency, this one did sponsor me a little bit in the past, but it's been a while, and this is a 4X grand strategy world map economic simulation set in the Gilded Industrial Age. You take command of a chosen nation and you lead it to glory through diplomacy, industrialization, and of course some warfare, you know. That's warfare and economics historically tend to go hand in hand. Now, you are mastering the art of war, you're building up this industrial empire. There's a lot of economic simulation with resources and prices and supply and demand and all of that good stuff. And you also try and shape society and culture, influencing religion, migration of people, assimilations of lands, as you manage your government and its policies, trying to take into account the interests of various historical political parties. Essentially, this is like Risk, but a bit more economical, and that sounds like a lot of people would be into it. Now, this one is also aiming for a 2026 release, so they've been sharing various updates and reveals, and it seems to all be coming together. Now, whether this does actually simulate the economics at a level that everyone will be happy with, we'll have to wait and see what we get on the release date. For now, we're looking forward to Gilded Destiny in the coming year. The First Explorers. This does vibe at first glance to be a bit more RTS with the Settlers approach in terms of gameplay, because it does look very much like an RTS, but also there is city building as well. So the First Explorers is blending Settlers-like organic city building gameplay, we could say, but also RTS in this bustling world set in the time of antiquity in Europe, with you being able to play as the Romans, Carthaginians, or Gauls. So you are building up your village/town/city, collecting resources, handling and setting up all of these production chains, and then raising an army to conquer and survive in these strange worlds. This is looking very promising as well, and we've been watching it for a little bit. It's meant to be coming into early access and staying in early access for up to a year. Of course, they always say 12 months, but it'll probably be longer. We have been watching this for a while, and the devlogs are showing a lot of detail, the trailers are showing quite a lot of gameplay, and there's a lot of questions and answers already being put out there. Indie developers tend to either have much more free communication with the audience. This is something that we see in this case where there's lots of Q&A, lots of discussions, lots of ideas being thrown around, or they tend to be too busy to talk to anyone. That's the nature of indie games, and the First Explorers looks like it's really trying its best to be something proper and might be able to pull itself all together and become another, maybe true successor to the Settlers series. Now, I do want to talk about this next one. It's called Beyond All Reason, and after many, many years, this one is still in alpha, officially anyway. But it is free and you can just jump in right now to play it. However, speaking of this one, it's just as time goes on, it gets better and better. Not just gameplay-wise, but visually as well. There's been another visual overhaul, adding in lights, which make the game look honestly fantastic. And it's just looking like a real proper big game now. And Beyond All Reason is this community-driven game. It's not really from a specific developer or publisher. It's what the community have been putting together. And it's a Total Annihilation, Supreme Commander-styled Warfront, Battlefront kind of game, where you're dealing with hundreds, if not thousands of units on the battlefield. And it's just so much. The scale is insane with these kinds of games. And that's why earlier when I mentioned Ashes of the Singularity II, it is competing with Beyond All Reason, which is a free game, already getting quite a bit of a fan base. So Beyond All Reason is this sci-fi RTS. You collect resources from these nodes and you build tons and tons of units. The terrain matters, there's tiers of technology and you upgrade your units, and there's so many different types of units, air units as well, artillery. It's just a lot. I think a lot is the best, quickest way to describe Beyond All Reason. It's just a lot. So if you're looking for a small-scale RTS, look elsewhere. Beyond All Reason is trying to be the biggest it can be, and it keeps getting bigger every couple months. Having said that, it is probably going to be in alpha for years and years and years, and if it gets into beta, it'll probably be in beta for years and years and years. But it is going to be playable right now, and also through 2026, when we can look forward to even more updates and improvements. So although this isn't really going to be releasing in 2026, sometimes with these perpetual early access games, we could say, they're just perpetually upcoming. I think in a list like this, where we're talking about RTSs that give us hope, Beyond All Reason is definitely on that list. And then for probably one of the most wanted games of the entire year, not just for the strategy genre, but of all games, Slay the Spire 2. That's right, this one is set for a March 2026 release, and this is a roguelite deck builder, where you craft a deck and then you encounter bizarre creatures and you discover relics of power and you make your way up a spire battling these enemies. Now, the reason why this is one of the most wanted upcoming games is because of its predecessor, Slay the Spire. That released in 2019 to overwhelmingly positive user reviews. Just for reference, on Steam, it's got 165,000 user reviews at 97% positive. The original game was insanely popular, and Slay the Spire, the first one, is one of the most played games on Steam. Not in the strategy genre, of all games. It's regularly sitting in the top 100 most played games, and that's pretty impressive for a strategy game. So Slay the Spire 2 has been a long time coming. They've been showing off bits and pieces here, visually, some animations and some battle scenes and everything, so we're starting to get a clearer picture for this as we build up to the release. When you get your hands on this, there will be an ever-changing spire as it shifts and alters itself as you explore your way through it. You'll be coming across new types of enemies, new items, new spells, and new cards, of course, and everything. But it does have to be said that this is intending to release into early access, so not a full release at the start of 2026, but how long it stays in early access probably depends on how things go. This is also, by the way, not just a card battler, it's a bit of a roguelite thing, where you do a run, and then you lose, and then you get more powerful, then you do another run, and maybe win this time. So this might not be a strategy game in the sort of traditional understanding of the genre, but for the most part, people do consider these types of card games as strategy games, and for now, I think it's a good fit for this list. And that's the top most wanted strategy games of 2026. Of course, there are so many more I have not mentioned. Which ones are you personally most looking forward to? I do have much more extensive lists, so if you want to continue the journey, subscribe to catch them, or click the videos on screen right now. If you enjoyed this, click the like button down below. If you want to support, check out the Patreon or use the GOG referral link below to get any game. Thanks for watching. I hope you found this interesting and or useful, and I will see you in the next video.